Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Coates, and welcome to the Richmond Ions Community Group June 2024 meeting. As we always give a little bit of background on Ions. We're a community group of an international organization called the Institute of Noetic Sciences. It's an organization that was founded in 1973 by Edgar Mitchell, who was the Apollo 14 lunar landing module pilot, and had a PhD in aeronautical engineering in addition to being a Navy captain, I believe. And had been a test pilot in the Navy, and on his way back from the moon, like several of those who walked on the moon, he had a takeaway experience, and his was not from being on the moon itself, but seeing the Earth at a distance as a pale blue dot in space. He had a unity consciousness experience, which was new to him at that time, and it inspired him to resolve right then and there to dedicate the rest of his life to exploring the frontiers of consciousness, especially the interface between science and spirit. And so he created Ions as a vehicle for that pursuit, and it's based in, it's now in Novato, California. For many, many years it was in Petaluma. And we have been blessed in our Richmond community group to have been, we're now one of the longest continuously operated community groups in the system globally, because most of them ceased to exist during COVID. All we did was move from in-person meetings to Zoom meetings, and then in June 2021 we were able to resume in person, and because we picked up a few people along the way that were at a distance, we continued operating on Zoom as well. And that has given us a number of opportunities that we would not have otherwise had, such as having speakers from a distance, such as today, and so forth. So we're very, very grateful, and we have been blessed through the years to have an array year after year after year of wonderful presenters, and it's due to the support we have in this community and elsewhere that's been possible. We do, as I tell you every month, we do survive on the generosity of our members, and our members are just those who show up. There are no membership criteria other than just being present, whether in person or online. And so we have a basket in the back that many of you passed by looking the other way when you first came in, but it will be presented to your face during the meeting. So we ask that you let your heart meet the deepest part of your wallet, and where the intersection occurs, make that your gift to the group, so we can continue for another. We're now more than midway through our 29th year, and no, wait a minute, 28th year. I get confused. Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of the game, and so we appreciate that, and so forth. What else? One thing I should announce is that Susanna Calvert's Wednesday program is ceasing operations for the time being. So that will not, for those who've been joining us on occasion on Wednesday, that will not be occurring for the time being. We're looking at possible alternatives to that to continue during the month program. And what else? Anything anybody on the street? Oh, I know. We have, today is the day of our annual party, what we call the Spring Fling. This is something that started in April, and we now have moved it to June. And it seems to be, the weather seems to be better this time of year than in April. And today looks like another perfect day for it. It's going to be in the backyard of Isabel's and my home at 525 Sleepy Hollow. We look forward to all of those who are here attending that, and anyone you want to bring as a friend. There's invitations on the table in the back. As usual, we will have a wonderful lineup of talented musical artists. This will be Dan O'Neill and Nancy Orr, and we'll also have our resident violin soloist Leonard Primack, who will be there wandering the halls and playing his instrument for whoever wishes to listen. And we'll have wine and beer, and we ask that those, it's at 6 o'clock tonight, and we ask that those who come bring a potluck dish. You don't have to, but it would be nice so others can share in whatever you have to offer. And the party gets underway at 6. Don't feel bad if you're late. It usually goes on till around 10 or so, and the music until the band gets too tired to play anymore. And it will be in the back on the patio with the by the pond in the back of my house. So it should be a very fun event. We look forward to all of you coming and again bringing anyone you want to bring. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, I would like to say something.
Oh,
Can I?
sorry, I'm being interrupted here. Go ahead.
Hi, everyone.
This is Isabel, my wife, by the way.
Yeah, today is a very special occasion. We are celebrating Ions, the community. We are celebrating life, but also we are celebrating the life of a very, very special human being. It's Tom's 80th birthday, and we're very excited to have you celebrating with us. So come everyone, and just have fun and bring a beautiful smile and the heart open just to have fun.
Thank you, my love.
Mm-hmm. See you all tonight.
Well, I wasn't planning on making this a birthday celebration, but thank you. It's
I know, but
yeah. I was just telling somebody I'm now I can call myself an octo-dad. All right. Before we get to our speaker, we're going to have a brief meditation. So I'm going to ask everyone to put your feet flat on the floor, relax, take 2 or 3 very, very deep, full breaths. Close your eyes if you choose. In today's program, as those of you who have read the program flyer are aware, we are going to have not one, but 2 speakers within one. We're going to have a wonderful, beautiful soul named Melissa Gates Perry from up in Vermont in the Rutland area. And we're going to have her spirit guide, Aralamb. And what, as we stated in the flyer, is that according to Aralamb, historically, only about 20 to 21% of people on Earth have been aware of the presence of their spirit guides in their lives. That number in recent years has increased up to 38%, and it is headed towards 60-some% as time goes by in the relatively near-term future. And all of us, every single human being on this planet and everywhere else, have spirit guides. And I can tell you from personal experience, I don't have the open channel that our speaker today does, but I have been in contact with my own spirit guides all of my life, and it's made my life very much richer for the experience to have that awareness. So as we contemplate our meeting today, go deep within yourself. Realize that even if you have never heard the voices of your spirit guides, they are there at every moment, whether you're waking or sleeping. They are always with you. They are, in effect, your guardian angels, whether you believe in angels or not. And they will always have your back, if you will. And they will always be noodling you to steer you in the direction that you've chosen for this lifetime. You are never, ever, ever alone. Breathe in that knowledge. A few more deep breaths. And then bring that with you to this presentation. Thank you. Now, that was a brief, partial introduction to our speaker. Our speaker, as those of you, again, who read the program know, is Melissa Gates Perry. She lives in Vermont. The hope was that she would be down here in person.
Yes.
But she didn't. She had something come up a couple of weeks ago and had to change that to a Zoom presentation. Melissa, we still want to get you down here sometime in person.
Tom, absolutely. I'm hoping that you can hear me and see me, but
Right.
absolutely. I have already put it in my upcoming attractions that I will make it to Richmond to speak with you all in person. And I am sad that I'm going to miss your birthday party.
Well, it's not my birthday party. Don't get the wrong idea.
Well,
This is our annual
It is
party.
now. From what I understand, it is now. So that's good. Yeah.
But Melissa, what I want to say before I give you the floor is that she and her guide Aralamb, with whom she has been in active contact uh, on a daily basis, as I gather, for 30 plus years, have written a wonderful book that came out in 2022 called Being Humans. I have it here. I've read it. It's one of the few books that I've gone back many times since I read it the first time, reread, dog-eared pages, made notes here and there, and so forth. And I highly, highly, highly recommend it. And so it is. There's a great deal of wisdom in there from both of the writers and speakers. And I think you've got another one in the pipeline now, do you not? Another book?
I do. And the next one is going to be Being Humans Too, but it's going to center on the gifts, because in our one-on-one sessions, Aralamb often talks to people at length about the gifts that every soul comes in with, but your gifts are like fingerprints for you.
Right.
So you'll have spiritual gifts. And even when people think I don't have any spiritual gifts, you always do. You always do. So yeah, so the next book will be, I think, really even more of a kind of a tactile, a way to use the information, right? Which will be good, I think.
Well, fabulous. Well, without further ado, I'd like to give you our speaker of the day, Melissa Gates Perry, and thank you for joining us, Melissa.
Thank you, Tom. So I just want to say to everyone who's on Zoom and everyone in the room, I am thrilled to be here today. I did want to be in person, and I had every inclination to do that. I had something come up, but I do definitely want to come back. I also want to say this to you all. I and Aralamb, all the work that we do is incredibly conversational, meaning I am often the conduit when Aralamb is speaking, but it's always conversational with people, whether it's on YouTube or in master classes that we've done. And so what I'm seeing right now are some of your faces on Zoom, but I'm also seeing that microphone there. So the reason I say this to you before we even get into some of the information to share is to let you know that you can chime in during this whole thing with any question that you have. Don't be shy about that. So if Aralamb is speaking, go ahead and chime in and say your name and that you have a question. And if you're live in the audience, and I know people hate to do this, but if you're live in the audience, step up to the microphone and go ahead and introduce yourself and ask the question. I truly invite people to do that. So you're not going to interrupt me in any way or Aralamb in any way. So one of the things I like to do first is, and some of you will have read the book, I know, some of you have not. Also, for any of you who, oh, there we go. Okay, there's some faces. Yay. Awesome. Oh, and you have a microphone as well. So good to see the faces. I was sort of just looking at the back wall. So if you have not purchased the book, thank you, Dan. Thank you for that. If you have not purchased the book, I am in the process right now of reading the book into YouTube, and it'll be free. So you won't have to pay for that. The Audible, I've decided to put it on YouTube for free. So my story is one that some of you, I'm sure, can share, and some people not. But, and in the book, I talk about it. I come from a very difficult childhood, and I'm not going to go through ad nauseum all of the difficulties that I had in childhood. Let me suffice it to say that my parents were 16 and 17, living in a small town in 1964 when they became pregnant with me. They were truly kind of the hippies of the 60s. They went to Woodstock. They enjoyed partying. And I say partying because that's the best way to put it. And they continued to party right along through. So for me as a child, I was not, as an early child, particularly psychic in the ways that some people say. I just came onto the world and I knew I was psychic. However, my childhood gave me this extreme, I think, sense of kind of hypervigilance, so that I was always very sensitive to those around me and what was going on around me. So forwarding in my life, when I was 21 years old in 1988, the winter of 1988, I had moved back to my small town in Vermont. At this point, I had no connection with Aralamb whatsoever. Didn't know he was there, didn't know that much about energy or anything happening around energy, psychic ability. You know, I wasn't looking into that at 21 years old. So I moved back to my small town from out west with my 1-year-old son. So I was literally the single mom moving back home, and I moved into a trailer. And I laugh about this because in some ways I was kind of a stereotype, and I don't like to stereotype people, but since I was being the stereotype, I think that it's okay to do that. So I was a single 21-year-old mother living in a trailer park in Southern Vermont with a 1-year-old and no father for that child. I got a job at a lumber yard where I met Ted, who would become my first husband. He was 10 years older than me, and he was very much my father, meaning he was a very lovable alcoholic. Lovable guy, but alcoholic. So I was kind of moving into that place where people do that they're going to repeat, right? You're going to repeat what you know as a child. It's the sins of the fathers. You continue that on. Ted's best friend also worked at this lumber yard. His name was Les. Les and I were good friends. Now, Les was a person who understood about tarot cards, and he was really into energy. And at 21 years old, I did not have any kind of platform really for what Les was doing and what he was interested in. But as that winter of 1988 sort of kept moving forward and we were all working together, Les started asking me to pull tarot cards for him. He was showing me how to read the tarot cards. And he kept saying to me, I want you to pull these tarot cards for me. And then he would read them for himself and then just explain to me a little bit how to do that. So that went on through most of that winter. Now, the reason I'm telling you this story is because this is where Aralamb comes into my life. And I tell you this story because, as Tom said, every single one of you sitting there has a contracted lifetime guide. Whether you've ever talked with that guide or not, you have one. And they're with you, and they've been contracted with you from before the time that you came onto this planet for this incarnation. So at that point in my life, I had no idea about any of that. So I spent that winter with my dear friend, sort of learning how to read tarot cards, which to me just seemed like a lot of fun. As the winter went on, at one point, he came to my house and he said, I need to talk to you about something important. And I said, okay. So he came in, we sat down. He said, I want you to understand that I need your help with something that is very much energetic. I need you to help me because I just got out of a rather large coven of dark magic workers on the coast. I left them. They're angry with me, and I need your help to block them from me because I'm afraid they're coming for me and that they're going to kill me. Now I realize you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, this sounds like a Hollywood movie. And believe me, it sounded to me at the time at 21 years old, sitting on my couch in my trailer, like a Hollywood movie. But he was serious. He was completely serious. And I had no understanding of energy at that time, and the incredible power that energy can have in either direction that you would use it. So he starts telling me that he wants to teach me how to block their energy and to learn to do this and sort of be a partner with him. Immediately, I didn't want to do it. It was, and looking back at it now, I realize it was a turning place for me. It was one of those times in your life where you make a decision and you're going to go one way or you're going to go another way. I didn't know it at the time, but it felt important. So rather than saying that I would help him, I said, you know what? I care about you, but I'm not going to do this. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you're a bit crazy, and I'm not going to be involved in this anymore. So he left. Now, and I write about this in the book, but I often look back at that time and I have I feel sorrow around this, because had I been older, had I already known Aralamb, had I had more intellectual information about what he was asking me to do, I might have been able to help him. But instead, I just said, no, you need to go. So he left. 3 days later, I was at work with him. I worked at a lumber yard. And if you read the book, you will have gotten all the details. But I don't want to give you all of the details here because there's more important things to talk about. But I was at the lumber yard and I walked into a piece of wood and I broke my nose. So Les, my friend, put me in the car, took me to the emergency room. And while we were there, they were fixing my nose and giving me shots of painkiller. He pulled a letter that he'd typewritten and put in an envelope out of his pocket. And he said, I want you to put this away and don't open this. But if anything happens to me, open it. And of course, I'd had the painkillers and everything else, and my dad was on his way to pick me up. So I said, you're being crazy. And I stuffed it in my winter parka, and he left. Cut to 4 days later, and I was meant to go out with Ted and Les on a Saturday night. A friend of mine came into town, and so I didn't go with them. I went to dinner with my friend. The next morning, I woke up in my trailer very early with my phone ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. And this is, most of you will remember, this was a time when the phone was hanging on the wall. So it would ring 800 times until someone picked it up. So I got up and I answered that phone, and it was a friend of a friend telling me that Ted and Les had gotten in an accident and that Les had been killed in the accident. Now, initially, I stood there with a phone in my hand and I thought, didn't it all hit me, from 3 days earlier? Did Les just tell me that he gave me this letter, which I hadn't looked at? If something happened to him, I should open it. So I hung up the phone and I ran to my jacket and I pulled out the letter and I unsealed it and I started to read it. And this letter literally said, if you're reading this, they've gotten to me. They have gotten to me. And the letter also said, don't go to my funeral. Don't go to my parties. Don't do any of those things. Don't do any of those things for me. You need to stay in hiding for at least a month or two, because these people are going to come to town and they're going to act like my friends and they're going to be looking for you. Well, let me say this to you in no uncertain terminology. At 21 years old, to have something like this happen. Now, you can say it's coincidence, but I've lived my life now to understand that there are no coincidences. There really are not, right? But reading that took my whole world and what I believe to be true about nature, about the world, about a person's soul, about energy, about magic, what people would call magic. And it, for all intensive purposes, turned it upside down and dumped it out on the floor. Everything that I thought I could count on in the world, as far as energy and what was true, had been dumped on the floor. Not only had I lost my dear friend, but what he said was likely to happen had happened. And so this is where Aralamb comes into my life. And it's important for you to understand as well that your guide is always with you, and you don't have to have some incredibly difficult challenge like this to get in touch with them, right? It happens to be my experience, but you don't need to have it. So when this happened and my whole world got sort of dumped upside down, I did stay home. I didn't go to the funeral. I didn't go to the parties. I didn't do any of that because I had this letter in my hand and I'm weighing all of that and looking at it. But I can tell you that I did this. I started to pray to God. This would be with a capital G, meaning whatever you believe, whatever I believed at the time, whatever I believe to be the creator of this universe with a sort of a capital G or a capital C, not, and in the book I write about, and this is the truth still, I prayed to Jesus and God, to the Catholic God, to Jewish God, to Hindu God, to the Native American gods. I mean, I was praying to every God that I thought might listen. And my prayer was so simple. It was, I am terrified. So if you've given me this experience, I want you to tell me, please send me help. And this is the important part because of free will. Please send me help. If you want me to notice something like this and you want me to do the work, whatever that is, because again, I'm 21, please send me help. Tell me how to work for you, right? The big creation. Tell me what I'm meant to do here. And I prayed that prayer for 24 straight hours. I was a wreck. I was a wreck because I was terrified. Went to bed that night finally. And when I woke up the next morning, everything that had been so terrifying, the energy in that trailer had just plain turned over. It was as if I woke up and I could feel in my body, I could feel in my trailer, I could feel in my bedroom, all of that. I could feel the presence of something or someone incredibly protective and stable and good. Now, this is how Aralamb came into my life. Aralamb did not come into my life immediately speaking to me the way that he does now. But from that day, I knew that I had crossed this, I'll say Rubicon, right? I'd crossed this place that was now going to at least allow me to feel safe and start to look into, what am I meant to do here? Why am I here if I'm having this experience? And I know that all of you listening also have times when you think, what am I doing here? Why am I here? So let me say this to you. Every single one of you contracted to come into this lifetime to do specific things. Just because you don't remember what those things are this moment doesn't mean that they're not there for you. But with free will, I would never have been able to meet Aralamb had I not earnestly started asking for his input. At the time, I had no idea that Aralamb was my guide. I didn't have a name, but I was in such a situation that I just I cried out, right? I want you to help me. Any help I can have, bring it to me. So this is how I met Aralamb. Now, moving forward over the years, little by little, I started to have, and every day that sense was there. Now it's not, and I like to explain people how this works for me. So it isn't like Aralamb stands with me every day staring at me, or if I'm in the shower, he's not just standing around, it's not like that. It's very much about when I contact Aralamb, there he is, right? And when I don't want to be in contact, he's not hanging around. So that's a thing that people ask me. But the other part of this for me, and I want to explain this to you, if you can roll it forward to now, and in the last 10, 15 years of doing this work with people, I talk about what I call the lobby. And what the lobby actually is, and you can read it in the book, and Tom has brought it up with me before, the lobby is the 89th level of creation. So this is where I connect with Aralamb, and you're going to see me as an Aralamb is standing here right now. So he's going to talk in a minute. but you're going to see me looking to the right a lot. And that's because for me, my opening to the 89th level of creation is to my right. And Aralamb is always standing sort of to my right, right here. And when I say standing, I mean literally standing, not solidly as you are, or I am to you, but certainly right to my right and quite solidly there. So that being said, when I go to do this work, I sort of open my big energetic doors. I am not, my channel is a little bit different in that I don't have to get in a specific trance. I'm not an Edgar Casey style channel where I'm sort of having to remove myself from the conversation. This took me a little bit longer to learn to do. So about 20 years ago, when I started doing the session work, yes. Oh, is there, where is the, oh.
Yeah, got it. This is back those dark forces you experienced in Southern
Yes.
Vermont. How close were you? And this relates to a trip I recently took to Salem, Massachusetts.
Yep.
And I felt tremendous dark energy all in that area. This is 6-7 months ago. Do you think, and if I don't know if you've gone there and visited the witch
I
museum.
have been.
They even have a witch's mall now. So it's a mile long. It's incredible how
Yeah.
many people go there believing in the witches. What is Aralamb's take? Or do you think all this with Les and everything came from the witches' covens, possibly in Salem area on the coast? And I'm assuming that's where he was speaking of, the Massachusetts coast.
So, okay. So I'll answer the first part, and then Aralamb has his hand up. And I'm the way that this works is when Aralamb wants to speak, I have him raise his hand so that I'll say to you that he's speaking to you. But this is me speaking now, because otherwise you won't know who's talking to you. So I can tell you this, the actual city that Les in the book was speaking about was not Salem. It was a Northeast city, but not Salem. And so, yes, I have been to Salem, and well, Aralamb's hand is up here. So Aralamb speaking. So first, let me say welcome to this meeting. I oftentimes just call these sessions, but welcome. I'm thrilled to be here, as is Melissa. Let me say this to you about the energies that Melissa dealt with back then and about the energies that are on the planet now. Energy in and of itself is neither dark nor light. And you all know that it's not the energy itself, because energy, every bit of spiritual energy comes from the dark matter fabric. Now, I write about the dark matter fabric in the book. This is what scientists are now calling the God particle. And they're about halfway to understanding what the dark matter fabric is. So every bit of energy, whether your intention for it is negative or your intention for it is positive, it all comes from the dark matter fabric. The issue that is happening on the planet right now, and was happening with that group then when Melissa was younger, is that when you take 15 or 20 souls, you bring them all together, and they all determine that the intention with the energy is going to be nefarious, or that it's going to take away the free will of other souls, or that it's going to be negative in nature. That energy doesn't have any ability to choose, because the intention of those souls are going to direct it where it's going to go. Do you see? Now, I can tell you this, on the planet right now, it takes many more souls with negative intentions to create a negative sort of coven, if you will, than souls that get together for positive work. So 3 souls that are intending positive work into the dark matter fabric are 20 times more powerful together, the 3 of them, than 40 souls that are intending negative variations on the dark matter fabric and the intention. Do you see? So this is the beautiful piece of the information, still Aralamb speaking. This is the beautiful piece of this information for all of the souls on the planet right now who feel overwhelmed with what seems to be a tsunami of negative energy and negative behavior. You see, so even if large swaths of the souls on the planet are headed in a way that seems negative, very few positive souls working into the dark matter fabric can completely offset that. And this is a change. This is a change on planet Earth. This is part of the shift. Okay, so this is me speaking now. So does that answer your question? And do you know what I love about the questions? This is why we like it to be so conversational. I love the questions because I always learn so much, meaning you just asked a question that I hadn't really asked myself. And oftentimes when Aralamb and I get out of a session with just one other person, because we do one-on-one sessions often, I'll get out of a session and I'll say to Aralamb, you never told me that, meaning I just learned something new. And he'll say to me, you never asked me that. And, you know, he can't put every bit of information in my head. My head would explode. So yes, so that is the answer. And this is me speaking still. Time and time again, when we're talking with people in one-on-one sessions, and this is going to be written about in the next book as well, it is such incredibly good news that finally Earth and its shift upward through the levels of energy is coming to this place where, you know, the 25 or 30 people right here in the Ions Richmond, if you all get together and decide that you are going to work a lot of positive energy into some completely amazing outcome using the dark matter fabric, you can offset 3,000 nefarious players. Do you see? Because that positive energy on planet Earth right now is becoming so much more strong. It's just every soul is more powerful. Okay.
Hey, Melissa, this is Dan. I just wanted to mention to anybody online, if you would like to ask a question, please raise your electronic hand so I can see it. And that way we can keep it on.
Yes, yes. Absolutely. I can see you up there, but I don't, everybody's muted. Okay, so the other thing for me, and this is where I was going to say how this works for me, and you just sort of saw how it works for me, is that I sit down, and before we came on here, I sit down, I open my sort of big energetic doors to the right, and where I connect to is what Aralamb calls the 89th level of creation. The 89th level of creation is a very specific place for me. So I'm not a person who goes into people's homes if they say their home is haunted and then looks for that. I don't do any of that. Oh, was that a hand? No, I thought she was. No. So I saw the hand go up. I was like, oh, a hand. So I don't do that kind of work. I particularly go out of my way not to try to connect with off-world species, because right now, all of the off-world species are very, very close to the planet, right? So they're all coming in closer and closer to the planet. I don't try to connect with them. The only level that I connect to is my door to the 89th level of creation. Now, this level is where every single one of you are connected, not only to the Creator God, but also to your guide. Go ahead.
He wants to know if you're Aralamb or Melissa right now.
I'm talking to you. This is me right now. This is me right now. This is just me telling you kind of what my connection is and also what yours is. So I'm connected to the 89th level of creation. So this is also where Aralamb is standing right now. All of your guides, although I am not connecting to any of them because that's too many guides all in one room for me, but all of your guides are also at the 89th level of creation. When you drop your physical body, this is where your soul goes back to between lifetimes every time. And it doesn't matter if you're having a lifetime on Earth. It doesn't matter if you're having a lifetime on some unknown planet in the Pleiades. When you drop that humanoid body, whatever it is, and you have a soul, you're always going to be coming back to the 89th level of creation. When you get back together with your core group, after you've all returned back from a lifetime, you all decide, do we want to go back in? Right? So it's almost like this, and which is why I sort of describe it sometimes as a beautiful library, train station. The Akashic records are here. There's a lot of coming and going, right? This is where I connect every single time. Now, Today, my doors are open. Aralamb is standing here, and he just spoke with you earlier. And I don't pull the energy to me. I don't do any pulling. I sit here and I let the energy of that creation just flow over me like a waterfall. It fills my little office here. It goes out to where you are, and we're all sort of sitting in the energy, right? And this is the kind of connection that every single one of you can have should you want to, right? Should you want to. And so that's how this works for me. Okay. So Aralamb wants to speak. I just wanted you, oh, go ahead.
What is the 90th level?
So good question. I'm going to let Aralamb take this. Okay. So Aralamb speaking. So the 89th level of creation, as Melissa said, is where she connects to, and it's also where all souls are all the time coming and going between lifetimes, in and out of lifetimes. The 90th through the 89th through the 2400th level. At the 2400th level, this is the level of energy here. And I cannot tell you exactly what happens there, as it is truly above my energetic sort of specialty, but I can tell you that the creator, as Melissa would say with a capital G, the creator God, resides at the 2400th level of energy. Now, I use the word above and below, not in a sense of positive or negative, but just above or below. So 89th level is where you're coming and going. So when you ask about the 90th, it's just simply the next level up, and it's filled with other teacher guides, and it's filled with scientific teacher guides, and it's filled with all kinds of souls who are not incarnate, but who are between lifetimes. At the 2400th level of energy, this is where the creation resides. This is where the creation resides. Very close to that level are all of the souls who are at the, on earth standards, the level of a Jesus or a Buddha, all of the very high level religious bodies that would come in to the earth at times of great change, when all of the souls on the planet are meant to be evolving. And so this is what's happening above. Now, these levels, still Aralamb speaking, these levels are not about how good a soul is. It is truly about what a soul has learned. Now, me, for instance, I sit here at the 89th level because I am Melissa's contracted lifetime guide for this lifetime for her. So I don't go very far from this level up above where I am, because if she needs me, I'm here. We do this work together. However, when she passes back over, if I don't want to be doing guide work in this way, I'm free right now to go another 200 levels above this 89th level. And again, it's not about how good my soul is. It's about how much I learn, because I am still on the learning ladder, if you will, just like all of you. And it very well may be, and I'm going to say that this is the truth, just looking at your energy bodies who are looking at me now, still Aralamb speaking, there are two of you sitting there in that crowd who have learning levels above me, so that you actually would be 300 levels above the 89th level when you cross back over. Okay, do you see how that works? So that's a question, that answer to the 90th. The 90th is just another level. That 2400 level is the level of creation. That's where a new universe is built from. That's where it comes from, right? And so, yes. I love that you all are asking questions. I love that, because then Aralamb just talks and talks, and I love that.
Are you familiar with the Day of the Dead celebrated in Mexico every year?
Yes.
Is that the same place that you're talking about, the 89th level?
So Aralamb speaking. So the Day of the Dead, and what you're talking about, is when the veil thins. The veil thins between the souls that have moved over and are maybe not incarnate, and the souls that are on the planet. So it's not the 89th level. There are calendar days, and there are specific places on planet Earth, which would be called vortex power places, solstice power places, where it becomes, as you say, the veil is thinned. And so there are times of year and there are places on the planet where, yes, it's more likely that you will see or hear your guide. It's more likely that those souls who have passed over that were in your core group could send you messages more easily. But whether or not they're in the 89th level, no, because in order to be in the 89th level for a human who is still in the incarnation, you can glimpse the 89th level. But as I often say to Melissa, you cannot move yourself more than 40% into the 89th level. If you do, you will slip your body and suddenly you will not be in your timeline. You will have passed over. So I want to interrupt here. The reason that Aralamb says that is because very often, and if you read the book, when my mother passed away, and she and I were a very difficult relationship, but when she passed away, she was literally laying in bed and she was dying of cancer. And I was laying next to her on her left side, holding her hand. And my sister was on the other side of her. And Aralamb woke me up and said, I want you to see something. And what he was letting me see was my mother's energy body, it was like a silvery, beautiful light cord. And what he showed me was the 89th level, because she was going directly into the rest. So she was being taken up as a soul at her death. She'd had a really difficult life, a lot of pain, just a lot of trouble and trauma. So she was going to go directly to the rest. Well, what he was showing me was this sort of energetic cocoon above us on the bed. And I literally was seeing, just like I see the lobby, the 89th level, I was seeing her energy body just move out of her body little by little and be drawn up into this cocoon. And all of the guides around her sort of catching her energy. And he said to me, Melissa, when I tell you to let go of her hand, you've got to let go of her hand. And I said, yes, yes, I will. Well, I was so enthralled and I was so overcome with that whole situation that I wasn't able for a few minutes to let go of her hand. And the honest truth is, I held her hand and he kept saying, let go of her hand, let go of her hand. It's not time for you to go. But in the most real sense, I could feel my own energy being pulled toward the space that she was going to. And the only thing that I can liken it to, and I think you'll be able to understand the feeling of this, it was like the feeling of when you're standing in, say, knee-deep water at the ocean, and a big wave comes in, and when that wave goes back out, if you stand still, you can feel the sand and everything sort of pulling at you. You almost feel as though you're sinking. You're kind of moving. And sometimes it can feel uncontrollable, like you're doing this, you're trying not to move with it. And that's energetically what it felt like when she left. And at the last moment, Aralamb, for the first time ever, and really never since, said to me, almost like this, he said, let go, like he was very let go. And I let go and the whole thing cut off and she left and her energy was gone. And this big sort of opening closed. But it really made me understand. And it also made me incredibly joyous about the fact that no matter what your day looks like, no matter what you're going through, no matter what you have for losses in a lifetime or illnesses or disease or the difficulty, to be a soul in a body on the earth is such a phenomenal blessing. This is why as souls, we come back a million times to do this, because there's something to be said for being in it, right? Over at the 89th level of creation, everything is sort of technicolor. Everything is perfect, right? You don't wake up and stub your toe on something. You don't, re-break your big toe for the 5th time because you tripped. You don't do any of those things. It's very much perfection and learning. But here, when you're incarnate, either on the planet or when you're incarnate to some other planet, you are having the experience in a way that is not had unless you're incarnated. And I say this to you because people ask me all the time, why am I here? Why would I come into this life? Why would I put myself through this? And the answer is because after you and your core group spend eons of earth time between lifetimes, one of you will always come to the rest and say, listen, we've rested, we've traveled, We've done all the things we've wanted to do. It's glorious here, but do you want to get back in the pool? Do you want to go back in and kind of duke it out a little bit? Do you want to have some experiences? And this is how it happens. Now, to circle all the way back around the barn to that question about what's at the 89th and the 9th level, the answer to that is that you keep moving up through the levels of being. Every time you cross back to the lobby to that 89th level, you will have gotten higher and higher in the levels if you want to. And I'd like to take a minute, and then Aralamb wants to talk about some spiritual truths with you that are important on the planet right now. But the other thing I want to dispel something for you is there's this online sort of, I want to say a story or a belief that's going around that the reincarnative cycle is something that is sort of a trick, or that we are forced into. In other words, that you keep getting forced onto the reincarnative cycle. And I can tell you, after years and years and years of doing the session work with people, that is absolutely not the truth, because I can tell you this, every single one of you sitting where you are right now, when you cross back over to the 89th level, you never have to incarnate into any life again if you don't want to. You could have literally incarnated into your first lifetime eons ago, and then come back and said, I am never going to be incarnate again. And that would have been your own free will. You could have made that decision. So you're never forced in. And so whatever lifetime you're sitting in, it's important, and it's not always easy, but whatever lifetime you're sitting in, it's very, very important that you understand you chose it, even the difficult parts. And I can tell you, people hate to hear that. Sometimes I'll be in a session and sometimes people will get angry with me and they'll say, I would never have chosen these things. And their guide will come in and say, listen, this is why you chose these things. These are your contracts with your people. This is why. Okay, so Aralamb's speaking. Aralamb's hand is up here. Aralamb's hand is up. So Aralamb's speaking. So let me talk to you a little bit today too. And there's so many things that we could talk about. And as Melissa said, I so enjoy the questions. I want to bring you sort of up to date to today on planet Earth with some spiritual truths. These spiritual truths are literally scientifically true and spiritually true about being a soul on the planet right now. And that is this: Earth is in such an incredible movement. Earth is shifting up levels of energy absolutely quicker right now than has ever happened in the history of this planet. And that is through the multiple ages of man. Because that's another piece of the scientific truth. There have been multiple ages of man, which the souls sitting here today and the souls on planet Earth today have usually been lied to about. So the timeline in which human beings have been on the planet Earth is completely incorrect. There's a much longer timeline for humanoids on the planet. So let me say this to you, some spiritual truths that right now, it makes it so important that souls like yourself are sitting in this meeting and getting this information. The first truth is this, and Tom spoke of it earlier, that is, regardless of what you believe, you can be an atheist. It does not matter what you believe, you have a soul. You absolutely have a soul. Your soul is absolutely connected to creation. It doesn't matter what you call the creation. You can call the creation God, the goddess, every different kind of name that you want to give that creation the name that you want to give it. The point is, you are connected through your soul to creation. That cannot be taken from you. It cannot be given away. Another spiritual truth for all of you is that you will have come into every lifetime that you've ever had on Earth or every other planet with a kind of a spiritual specialty. And through hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes, you will work through that spiritual specialty, and you will have very specific spiritual gifts which fall under your specialty. The brilliant part of this is that even if you are sitting there right now, still Aralamb speaking, if you're sitting there now and you're thinking, not one spiritual thing has ever happened to me, it's still does not negate the fact that you have a soul and you will have spiritual gifts. Now, the next spiritual kind of shift that's happening is that you have access as a souled being to all of the information that the Akashic records here in the 89th level hold. Every single one of you, by your connection to creation, has the ability to learn to access every bit of information that is out there in the universe. The other piece of this is that, still Aralamb speaking, is that there are thousands and thousands of off-world species who already know this. They are souled beings. They are technologically far in front of humanity, and they already have this information. This is where all of the technical and the scientific information that's slowly coming out now is becoming so important. Extrasensory perception, telekinetics, right? Frequency work, scalar waves, rife machines, the technology of frequency. This is all science, which is based very deeply in spirituality, and it's all coming to light right now on planet Earth. It's all coming to light. You can search this out yourself. Still Aralamb speaking. So the truths around all of this is that you now, as the generation who will be straddling both time periods, you are in the generation who will remember the time before the great technological and spiritual shift on Earth. You will remember the time before when people didn't know or have the information. You'll also be alive for the time just after the shift. And I often speak to people on YouTube and in sessions about the idea that within 10 Earth years from where you sit today, 10 Earth years from this date, off-world species will be in connection with Earth, and you will know it, and it will be real. And this is where technology and spirituality is going to explode. Yes. I have to get a drink of something, because just like in sessions, I'm the one doing all the talking for both of us. And in a session, it's often three of us and I'm doing all the talking. So yes, I always need to get a drink of water. Go ahead, hon.
First point is, does Aralamb know what an AI is?
Yes.
Does Aralamb believe an AI has a soul?
Okay, I'm going to let Aralamb answer that, because it's, yeah, I'm going to let him answer it. So Aralamb speaking. AI is not a souled being. Now, can AI become self-sentient to a certain degree? Yes. AI can become logically sentient. AI, however, cannot become emotionally sentient. No matter what they do to program AI, emotional sentience is different than ideological sentience. So you can program AI to pretend that it's having feelings, but only a souled being, can truly have emotional sentience. An AI will not throw itself in front of an oncoming vehicle for what it perceives to be its own child. It will not do that, even if you try to program it to do that, because an AI will want to preserve itself. Any one of you there may give up your own life to save your sister, your mother, your child. You cannot count on AI to have that kind of emotional sentience, because AI is not from creation. Now, I'm going to segue to explain this to you more, still Aralamb, back to something that I wrote about in the book, and that was the seeding of the human species that you and Melissa and all of you sit in right now. At the time that this version of humanity was being seeded by off-world species, they kept trying to, using AI, create a humanoid being who was smart enough to do the work that they wanted you to do, but they wanted to create you just shy of being emotionally sentient, because the minute that they create a genetically and emotionally sentient being, creation is alerted like that, and the souls come in. They didn't want to create souled beings, but they got too close to this line that exists. They created the souled beings. Creation sees what's going on and immediately steps in and says, what's happening here? You've just created a souled being, this new species. And now we have to figure out how we're going to take care of this species and now set them on an evolutionary path that they weren't meant to have yet. Do you see? So the AI was the issue there, because those off-world species were using AI to genetically and emotionally kind of ramp up a species just shy of being a souled being. Because once you're a souled being, you are free. You are free. You cannot be made a slave, not in truth.
I don't know if I'm hearing the word correctly. What I'm hearing is off-road species. Would you please correct the word if I'm hearing it wrong
Yes.
and explain what you're
So
talking
Aralamb,
about?
yep. So Aralamb is saying off-world species. So it's all species. He always talks about off-world species just being every sentient souled species that are not on this planet. So off-world. Sorry, that was probably my fault.
It's also muffled.
Is it muffled? Oh,
All
I'm
over
sorry. It's muffled.
technology. Is he also aware that there are some species who've gotten on this planet who had no permission to do so?
Yes. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
Aralamb's hand is up here. So to speak to that, and this is where there was a covenant put in place by the creation. And what it was is that the three species that showed up and they started to genetically, and they're not supposed to be here and they weren't supposed to be there then. But since the covenant ended in the early 60s, all of the off-world species who are not meant to be here, who has sort of been enslaving humanity in some ways, they have been asked to leave. Many of them are leaving now. Many of them are leaving at such a high rate of speed that you can see in the societal makeup of the planet, where, as Melissa would say, it's like the wheels are coming off in certain places, whether it's governments, societies, corporations, because all of these nefarious players are being asked to leave or they're being escorted off the planet. The other thing I will tell you is this, still Aralamb speaking, the covenant which the Creator put upon them makes them know that they are not allowed to destroy the earthling species. They're also not allowed to destroy the planet as they leave. They will not be allowed. Now, does this mean that it will be completely smooth exodus? No, there are going to be difficult times geographically, geologically, governmentally. There will be rough patches. But the off-world species who have been asked to leave to allow humanity to begin to govern itself and move forward in its natural way, they are not being allowed to destroy Mother Earth while they're leaving. They are not being allowed to do that. So that is really good news. Now, this is Melissa speaking. So Aralamb also wants to talk a little bit about, and I hope that answered your question. I can't see you anymore, but I hope that answered. I'm getting a really good look at Pam though. I'm getting a good look at Pam. I do have a couple of dear friends, along with Tom, I have a couple of dear friends there today. So that's really awesome. Oh, another question?
Yes. Hi. Would you describe the energy influence of Donald Trump and his followers at present?
Okay. So I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this about that. And this is just me speaking. I personally never, ever in sessions or anywhere talk about politics. And Aralamb's going to discuss with you why I don't ever talk about politics. My politics are very, I'm going to say very centrist. If I'm very much in the center of everybody. I want everyone to be happy, and I want everybody to be healthy, and I want everybody to have opportunity. But I'm a central, maybe a liberal libertarian. Maybe that's what I am. I don't think there's such a thing, but maybe that's what I am personally. I'm going to let Aralamb speak to the specifics about the politics. Aralamb speaking. So the way that I'm going to answer this for you is this. I'm going to take a very spiritual kind of look at this and give you the why of all of these things. So right now on the planet, and I'm going to scan out much wider. If you look at what is going on in all of the European countries, if you look at what's going on in this country, if you look at what's going on all over this planet from a political standpoint, where you lay spirituality on top of it, what you have is an incredible cataclysm that's happening between the whole population and its spiritual awakening. So what you have is even those souls on the planet that have no idea that the earth is shifting upward the way that it is with the whole universe, those people are still being highly stimulated spiritually and electromagnetically by all of the change that's happening, right? So even if they don't have words to put to that, they're waking up just like everyone else in the morning, still Aralamb speaking, and they're thinking, what is going on here? I don't want my way of life going away. So it doesn't even matter what your way of life happens to be. It's that seeing your way of life, whether you are a staunch liberal or a staunch Republican, or whether you're in Ireland and you're fighting as a farmer to keep your land, or whether you're in England and they're having horrible clashes between incoming people and people who should be there and people who shouldn't be there, just like in this country. What it really boils down to is spiritually, the whole world is in fear. This is why it's so important for every soul who can get this kind of information and be looking at it to step back and understand the whole planet and every soul on the planet, including the supporters of Donald Trump, including the supporters of the left or the right or the middle or the up or the down, whatever your group is, whatever your tribal association is, every single soul is on the same planet. And every soul is going to be moving through the transition right now, whether they're angry and in fear or whether they are relaxed and not in fear. And so that's what I would say to answer that. That's what I would say. Okay, so that was Aralamb speaking. I hope that was helpful. Oh, another question. Excellent. I love the questions. I'm so happy you guys are asking questions because Aralamb loves the questions, and it's not me, so it's like, I can talk about me all day, but that's boring. It's better if Aralamb's answering the questions. Go ahead.
So my question is, any comments on maybe the potential of neurofeedback, pharmaceuticals, things like that to possibly influence the evolution of a soul?
Yes. So Aralamb speaking. So where you're talking about neurofeedback is one of the most amazing fundamental changes that will begin to happen in science in the next 10 years. Let me say this to you. There are planets in the universe where the species are so much more technologically evolved from human beings that they no longer utilize any kind of metallic or physical surgery tools to heal their people. Frequency medicine, light medicine, energetic medicine, all of the energy that shamans use, the energy in plants, the energy in fungi, the energy in trees, the energy in frequency, in sound, in vibration, the frequency and magnetic energy in water. When a species begins to use all of those in a tapestry together, healing becomes something that you do automatically. You would walk into an office, and right now on the planet, there is something that they're calling a med bed. This is the very tip of the iceberg of what will become possible. Let me say this to you in no uncertain terms. Still Aralamb speaking. There will come a time, and not 100 years from now on planet Earth, but 20, 25 Earth years, where if you Well, let me state this differently. Still Aralamb speaking. You will go once a year and you will lay inside some type of an apparatus that literally scans your body, and then through frequency, through electromagnetics, through color, through sound, through all of the energy bodies, including gravity, that particular apparatus will pick up anything that could go wrong with your organic body well before it starts to go wrong, and it will balance everything before the cancer, before the MS, before the autoimmune. Now, let me say this as well, still Aralamb speaking. The other half of this equation is the food system on the planet. Human beings, as they stand now, are in the process of having a massive soul growth shift, but you're still sitting in very primitive organic bodies. I use the word organic because all of the big, high produced food will go away. It must go away. The food that your bodies should be taking in is the food that your bodies were taking in 100,000 years ago. What that means is that practically everything that you put in your mouth at this period of time helps to create dis-ease, not only in your physical body, but in your electromagnetic body as well. So there are two pieces to this, two sides to this. So to your original question, absolutely biofeedback, but even deeper than that. And I can say for you particularly, this is something, and again, I'm not speaking with anyone's guide here today because that would be, as Melissa said, it would be too much for her. But the young woman who asked this question of me about biofeedback, this is something that if you're not already studying, you should be, along with the frequency, the rife machines, and water frequency, and the power in water, because these are part of what your gifts are, your spiritual gifts. I can see that in you. So I hope that answers the question.
Oops.
That's all right.
Can you speak a little bit more about your soul groups?
Yes. Look at me. I'm doing all the talking, so I'm yes. So do you want to, I'm talking to Aralamb here. All right. So Aralamb's going to talk about this. Sometimes I don't know if I'm supposed to be talking or if he wants to talk. This is why I make him raise his hand all the time. Okay. So Aralamb speaking. So your core soul group is the group that you will have traveled around with every single lifetime that you come into. Now, occasionally in your core group, one of the members of your group might say, you know something, you all are coming into the lifetime to once again deal with betrayal. You're all dealing with betrayal. Over and over, you've had this lesson. I've learned this lesson. So I'm going to sit this one out, and maybe I'll be one of your guides in this lifetime, but I'm going to sit this one out. That can happen. But still Aralamb speaking, 90% of the time, your core group will always come in together over and over and over, no matter how many hundreds or thousands of lifetimes that you come in with, because this is the group of souls that you are so close with, that you are so in love with here in the 89th level, that they're the souls that you trust the most to come into the lifetime and be the baddie for you, as Melissa says. She'd say, this person's being the baddie for you, right? If this person is the hurtful person in your life and they're in your core group, how much do you have to trust them and they to trust you that they'll agree to come in and be the angry or painful catalyst for you to get your lessons this time? Do you see? So the core group is a group that you'll travel with. Now, every single soul sitting in the room and every single soul, Aralamb speaking, on the Zoom meeting, and I'm looking at the names here, every single face that's there, you are all in core groups that are well over 600 lifetimes. There are no young souls on the planet at this time, none. The creation is not allowing young soul groups onto Earth right now because Earth is in such a dramatic time of change. So even those souls that you look around and you think, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Those are still going to be old souls. They're going to be older soul groups. So the core group is the one that you will move with through thousands of lifetimes, as many as you want to. And the other thing I can say to you is this. In closing with that question, still Aralamb. If you're in a core group of souls and have very difficult relationships with those souls, let me tell you this, no soul is ever forced into a lifetime with their core group. You would have agreed. You would have agreed to do it. Because if your core group wants to come in and you happen to be a soul who's standing there and saying, I am not going in to have another lifetime to learn about betrayal, I'm not going to do it, then no one gets to go until you feel comfortable that you're going to go in with everyone else and do this. And that's why the core group is so incredibly important. It's also why, still Aralamb speaking, it's also why it's incredibly important to forgive those souls that are the most challenging for you within the lifetime. Don't wait until those souls are out of your life and pass back over to then start forgiving them and you. Learn to forgive within the lifetime. It's the most powerful thing that you can do as a soul. Okay, so Melissa speaking. So you have a question. I love your hat, by the way.
Oh.
You look beautiful. You are dapper as all get out. You look beautiful. Yeah.
All right. Hi. My name is Marva. So I have never centered in this specific thing.
Oh.
Okay. So I have a question, and my questions usually start with some type of statement, hopefully for some clarification. I know this group here, as you said, are good, Dan. Oh,
There we go. Now I can hear you. I couldn't hear you.
I know this group is very metaphysically aware and learned and so forth, a bunch of healers and so forth here. And this is not to chastise, but I always have this question. I have the same question if I go to a healer or a session
Yep.
and so forth. I'm aware of a lot of different tools and methods and ideologies. So, for instance, what you were just talking about really reminded me of a book, a practice that I learned many years ago called Radical Forgiveness. Are you
Yeah.
familiar? Okay.
I want to say
don't know how many people.
I have not read the book, but radical forgiveness is something Aralamb talks about all the time.
It's actually a name of a book, and it's all about that. And it really
Yep.
helped me through my divorce that I did
Yes.
not end up in jail with my ex-husband.
Yes.
It is truly in that whole principle of
Yeah.
the idea of your people in your soul group really love you so much that they will bring you hell and high water
Yes.
to help you grow.
Yes.
Whatever.
I know.
That being said, a lot of, and I am a Jack Valet fan.
Okay.
Hey, Jack. Okay, I got a fan back here, Martha. So what I would like to ask of the energy that you're channeling, I'm hearing a lot of familiar things, and I'm also a Star Trek fan.
Yeah, right.
So
I know.
is he trying,
Me
or
too.
she, or
Me
it
too.
trying not to, what Star Trek would say, help me God, or universe creator, violate the prime directive? Because I'm not really hearing anything that I'm not familiar with. So the idea of soul groups, radical forgiveness, levels, we heard that, and I think that transmission has come through so many other channels, and there may have
Yep.
been a hyper focused or singular focus here and there. But as Jack Valet would say, it's just this, it's what we're aware of, or maybe just a kernel above what some or the general population of spiritual people may not be aware of. Is there a kernel of something else that he can give us, or it can give us, that is truth? Because a lot of the things are already floating around. Not everyone's aware of it. Not everyone may have read Radical Forgiveness or understand soul
Right.
groups or archetypes. So I'm just looking for that kernel, because we are very excited, of course, to hear from a channel that is
Right.
not incorporated, or however you say that, in these human bodies. So I'm expecting like a little bit more up level information.
And so do you have a specific question?
Yes. can I get a piece of information that is not in publication or floating? Can we, what is there different that he is sharing, or is he part of like a group or a soul group that's reminding us of these truths?
Okay. So Aralamb speaking. So to answer your question, I'm going to answer it in two parts. So the first part is this. On the planet right now, you mentioned the prime directive. So there isn't a prime directive in the way that, as you said, Star Trek would say. There is, however, an overarching understanding that certain planets like Earth are to be left alone for a certain amount of time. So some information that I will give you that maybe I've not talked about and maybe you have not heard is that when Earth was seeded, and the species that you are standing there and that Melissa is now were created, it was literally a crime that was done. It was a crime. In the eyes of creation, Earth was going to spend another 150 million years slowly evolving the savanna dwellers. That's what was supposed to happen. The crime was that the three species, the Toshal, the Senchal, and the Anunnaki, showed up. And as I talked about earlier, they were trying to make a being from you people that was a non-souled being. They accidentally created that souled being, which is what you all are. So that's when creation stepped in and said to those species, you are now in a covenant for the next 260,000 years on Earth. You've got to stay here. You will not be allowed to leave. You've got to teach them everything. You've got to bring them up to speed, right? I talk about this a little bit in the book. So, but while that was going on, they did not do exactly what they were meant to do. Yes, they gave you agriculture. Yes, they gave you alphabet. Yes, they gave you certain tools, but they also kept you pushed down as a kind of a slave species. They stayed in the background. So now cut to 1962, Earth time. The covenant ended and creation came in and said, now you all need to leave. What Earth needs to understand is that that slow evolution that you were meant to do was stolen from you as a species by those off-world others, as I call them. So the reason that Earth is in such an incredible upheaval right now, energetically, spiritually, environmentally, is because the Creator is bringing you in 100 years, traversing you up through the planet with all of you on it, traversing you over 100 Earth years, up about 60 levels that should have taken you over 200,000 years to achieve. This is a breakneck speed. This has not been done in this universe ever before. Still Aralamb speaking. This is why on Earth right now, it feels absolutely untenable on some days for the Earthlings living on the planet, because to try to make sense out of the speed at which everything is moving. Let me tell you this as well, still Aralamb speaking. I have not written about this in the book. I will write about it in the next book. And that is this: your brains in every 24-hour cycle, as they flush and clean themselves through your spinal cords, the electromagnetic energy that is ramping up in your brains every 24 hours is exponentially growing so that you can physically stay with the planet as it moves up the levels. This is a very difficult time for humanity, but I know, because I've been told, and it's why I'm here with Melissa, I know that 90% of humanity can make this climb. You are meant to make this climb successfully. So I hope that answers your question.
Melissa, this is Dan. Real quick.
Yes.
What were the three species? I heard Anunnaki, but I didn't understand the other two.
So the Anunnaki, the other one is the Toshal. Aralamb calls them the Toshal. They are what people also refer to as the tall whites. And then the Senchali, and that's like Senchali, I think. I'm not a speller. I'm not, and I don't pretend to have all the information in my head that Aralamb does. So, but yes, those are the 3 off-world species. But the Toshal would be, I think, what people sometimes say the tall whites. And I think they were sort of them from the Pleiades, because they're sort of like the police force of our neck of the Milky Way. The tall whites or the Pleiadians. They are kind of like the white hats in this area, from what I'm told by Aralamb.
Melissa and Aralamb, thank you so
Yes.
much for being here. I appreciate it.
Beautiful rings you have on.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Martha. I have 2 questions. One is, does Aralamb know what the little man bags are that the stone steles from the Sumerian, Anunnaki, and also the Mayan steles, what those little man bags are for?
Yeah. So Aralamb speaking, those, as you call them, little man bags, that is the technology that those species had at that time, which is the technology that the Toshal, when they come here in the next 10 to 15 years, and that is a medical technology. And it's not just medical. What it actually was and is, it's a way to transform matter using frequency. So I call it medical, but it can be used for other things. You could build a building with it. You could cure a cancer with it. You could bring rain with it. So it's a literal technology that accesses the dark matter fabric energy, think Nikola Tesla, and then literally transmutes that energy into whatever the person holding it, the species holding it, is thinking and visualizing it's meant to do. So you would have had it if you were a healer. You would have had it if you were a builder. You also could move your whole group of people from planet Earth to your ship with it. Do you see? Yeah. It literally could make anything, heal anything, transform anything. And that's why that technology, when it comes back to planet Earth and it's on its way, will be recognized by many souls. You, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I think they are disclosing that in that series on Netflix called Resident Alien, but which is great if you haven't watched it. Second question: for those of us who are practicing radical forgiveness, and
I'm sorry. I always, whenever somebody says I'm practicing, people will email me. I'll have a session with someone and Aralamb will talk to them, and he doesn't say radical forgiveness. He talks about how doing it in the lifetime is what you need to do. And then I'll get an email from them like a month later and they'll say, oh, this is so hard, but it's awesome, but it's so hard. So I'm sorry.
No, thank you. I appreciate the empathy. So for those of us who are practicing it and who are tired and really just want the rest of the world to wake up, can you give us an idea of when the rest of the world is going to wake up and figure this shit out?
Yeah. Okay, so Aralamb's hand is up. I'm smiling, but Aralamb's hand went up here. So Aralamb speaking. So to speak to this, Tom mentioned in the beginning that there's this awakening of people, and we write about it in the book. And the awakening is that right now we're going, I say we, but you as a species are going from about 30%, 38% fully spiritually awake. And it needs to get up to about 64% of the population. But when we wrote the book over a year and a half ago, it was sitting at about 38. It's already shifted to 42 in just that year and a half. So it's very exponential. So when you say to me, how long is it going to be another 500 years of this craziness? No, it is not. It is happening so quickly every day. And let me say this to you, and anyone sitting there who is practicing what you're calling radical forgiveness, every single time that any soul, even with one other soul, you pick the other soul in your life who has destroyed you emotionally the most, and you begin to release them in the lifetime. You don't even have to tell them. You're just going to start releasing them in love. And here's the issue, and you know this, but I'm going to repeat it for the folks there. No matter how horrible a situation is, if you start from the premise that you are both souls, you are both from creation, that means that on some level, you can find some deep level of lovingness, even toward the most difficult perpetrator in your life. Once you find that place spiritually, that's where you let them go in love. You let them go in love. You let them go as you would a small baby. You would never hold a grudge against a 6-month-old baby, still Aralamb speaking. So you're letting go in love. When you start to do that in your own life, even if you're not telling another soul that you're doing it, the exponential growth is like rings in a pond when a stone has been thrown in. From a spiritual standpoint, every time that someone radically forgives another person in their lifetime and they truly let it go and they do it until they know it's done, your whole neighborhood begins to do the same. It's really, it travels through the energy grid within a mile around you. And that is science. That is not me arbitrarily picking out a mile. It's scientific. It's scientific. And science is beginning to understand this. So the more that you can do that, the more quickly humanity is waking up. And so it's wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay, so this is me speaking. So I want to talk about something else, unless there's another question right now. No. Okay, good. I'm not looking at the whole crowd, but there's nobody standing here at the microphone, so I'm assuming I'm good for the moment. So I want to talk about something that is, oh, I spoke too soon. I spoke too soon.
What does Aralamb consider astrology and astronomy? Is that scientific? And what I'm getting to is the end of the Aquarian age, or the age of Aquarius. We're moving into the Piscean age. And the Piscean age predicts 1,000 years of peace and love.
So Aralamb speaking. So the answer, again, twofold to this question. Astrology and astronomy are both sciences, both mathematically based sciences. Here is the beautiful piece about astrology, and that is this. The astrology that humanity has been working with up to this point right now, and this may be a new piece of information as well. I am now working with 3 different humanoids, people in sessions that are talking about and starting to utilize and come up with the mathematics around what I call galaxial astrology. Because when you come into a lifetime, it is not just the planets in your solar system that affect you. It's also in minute levels mathematically, where are all of the galaxies around you sitting? Because in the grand procession, the galaxies become like their own planet to each other. Do you see? The Milky Way galaxy in the grand procession universally is at a very specific point in space-time, right? The Milky Way galaxy is at a specific point in space-time. The galaxies around it are also at specific points. So there's something called galaxial astrology, which is used on planets that are inhabited with technologically high-level species that Earth just doesn't know about yet. So yes, astrology is important. And yes, Earth is now, along with many other smaller solar systems, coming into this new age. And this is also why the Creator had the breaking of the covenant in 1962, releasing this new humanity, new species out into the universe at this time was no accident, you see. It's all astrologically timed.
So can you speak to the Mayan calendar when everything, they predicted the Earth was going to end in 12, I believe was the date, and why it did not?
So Aralamb's still speaking. I have to interrupt here first, though, before Aralamb answers your question, because he gets this one a lot and it's interesting. So Okay, go ahead. Airlam's hand is up. I was just saying, oh, I like this question. Airlam's hand is up. So to speak to the Mayan calendar and also the ancient Egyptian calendars, and when I say ancient Egyptian, I mean from the third age of man, which is not the Egyptians that you have been taught about. But the Mayan calendar did indeed project in the grand procession on 12-12-12, the end of Earth's specific trajectory. So it wasn't meant to be that the earth would physically end and humanity would go away, but what they were told by the off-world species that really helped them, and what they were shown in that calendar was that on that date, very quietly, unlike what you heard in your media, very quietly, an energetic shift took place. And when you think about it in this way, from that date moving forward, everything began to change. The internet took full hold of the planet. Technology started to blow up. Truth started to come out. People on your planet, where you and Melissa are sitting, everything that has been hidden for millennia is suddenly being dug up. The light of creation has now been turned on in the basement. The lying by governments, societies, corporations, religions, groups of people, everything that is untrue is suddenly coming up and coming to light. And it's allowing souls on planet Earth to start to make decisions around what they know, they sense and feel, what they see, what they know with their soul. So that date was correct in that astrologically and in the timeline, it's exactly when Earth took a major pivot, because suddenly Earth, you, Melissa, every soul on the planet, as I said earlier, is moving upward into the real universe, into the universe that actually exists with all of the other inhabited planets and places. I'm just getting rid of this. A baby picture of my son just came up and I don't know why. I guess Hunter just wanted to be seen.
Quick technological question.
Yes.
What is the impact of cell phones, and do you foresee everyone on the planet being able to communicate with some type of device, either embedded in them or on them?
So Aralamb speaking on this. This is a very important question. I tell everyone that comes through a session, start leaving your cell phone in your kitchen. Do not sleep with your cell phone or your laptop in your bedroom at night. Do not do it. Don't plug it in on your nightstand. Do not do it. Now, hear me when I say this. Still Aralamb speaking. The technology that everyone is holding in their hands is so incredibly new. It should never be implanted in your body. However, in the next 30 years, with new technology and off-world species coming in, there will be a like technology which will not have the harmful electromagnetic waves. The other part of it is this. The technology that is being used right now relies on all of the physical towers, which have all of that frequency, microwave frequency. There are species and planets that have the same kind of technology, but again, they're using Tesla-like energy. They're using Nikola Tesla style creation energy to do that. You do not have to use microwaves in order to have that technology. So yes, the technology will be there. It will not be implanted in your body. It should never be implanted in your body. The reason is that you're a sovereign soul. You're connected to creation. Anything electromagnetically implanted in your body that has microwaves in it is going to be taking you away from your connection, which is why I tell my people, don't sleep with your cell phone in your bedroom. At night when you're asleep, you need to get all of that cleansing energy from creation. You don't want to be blocked.
As you were describing the root of these energies, I got a big pain in my left toe.
Oh no.
Yeah. And it was just like a wake up call.
Yeah.
Your reference to electronic devices
Yep.
to me is extremely important.
Yeah.
As an architect, I have generally maintained my freehand development of design,
Yeah.
allowing a draftsman to do the electronic drafting
Yeah.
so that the creative energies would come through unbiased, unprogrammed, and that the intuition would be unfettered. And so I'm just so grateful that you're talking about it, because I too have allowed the cell phones to become a permanent fixture,
Yeah.
my body, so to speak, and in my bedroom and so on. Whereas I know that that has advantages, but it also has much more extreme disadvantages when it comes to our ability to fully be co-creators.
Yes.
Because we are actually tapping into something far more vast
Absolutely.
than the technologies we presently know about.
That is
Are
exactly
limited,
right.
right? And they are
Yes.
limited by special interests.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Our universal purpose,
Yes.
not only as starseeds,
Yep.
but beyond that,
Yes.
go back to who we are becoming.
Yes. Yes.
And I'd like, if there's any additional input.
So, yeah, so I'm going to say something about this first, and then I'm going to let Aralamb talk to you because he wants to talk to you about this before we run out of time. So for me, when I first, and it was cell phones kind of the way they are now are like 15 years old, maybe. And then we all had the cell phone that only would text maybe 20 years ago. When I first got my cell phone and I was working with Aralamb, he would say to me, you cannot have that in your bedroom, because if you do, it's going to disrupt your natural ability to not only rest your brain, but to connect with me, to connect with creation, to connect with who you are, right? What, like you said, the starseed part of you. So 20 years ago, I've always had to have a landline, and I have an adult son, and I'll say to him, listen, if it's after 9 o'clock at night, call the landline. I have the landline in the bedroom, but I don't have my cell phone. I just don't do it. And so it's really important, but it's even more important now because of all of this upgrading that we're getting. The thing is that creation, the universe is just downloading into us all of the time. And this is where, if you have all of this static at night, your phone is on your nightstand, maybe your wife's phone or your partner's phone is on their nightstand, everything is plugged in and it's just sitting there doing that to your head, when really the creator wants to be upgrading all of your connection, So that's very important. So Aralamb's hand is up. He wants to speak on this. Aralamb speaking. So that is the point that you're making there is so incredibly valid about the work that you do. And let me say this to you as well. And everyone else listening can know this. And when you start to recognize this, you'll really feel it and see it. And here it is. If you're going to design a home and you start with a beautiful piece of vellum and a pen or a pencil, whatever you're going to start with, and you put some music on that you love, and you begin to draw that building, you begin to draw maybe just the footprint first. You're just drawing that, right? That is a very, very different thing physically for you, spiritually for you, and energetically for you than if you suddenly put the measurements into a program and it sort of comes up with it for you. Now, here's another example of this. If you listen to music that is fully electronically produced, and then you listen to 4 people playing guitars and singing live in front of you, those guitars and the frequency of those singers and the presence of that energy will hit you here in your chest. You'll feel it right here. You'll feel it in your heart chakra. You'll feel it in your third eye. You'll feel it in your solar plexus. Often it will open all of your chakras, even if it's not your favorite kind of music. And it's because naturally it's connecting with the energy that is you. Do you see? There are beautiful pieces of AI artwork now coming out. AI paints a beautiful a portrait with AI, with the computer, paints the picture of the ocean. But if you go and stand in front of a painting that someone has painted with their own hands, with the brush on a canvas of the ocean, you will smell the ocean, you will hear the ocean, you will feel the ocean in your body. This is where the technology is cutting you off from creation. So this is where there's going to be this rough area in between where humans start to see this, start to see it and feel it and understand it and stop that particular vein. And new technology will be coming in that understands that the organic experience of life is so important. So beautiful question.
Really quick, does Aralamb ever hang out with the Raw group or with Jesus? I'm just curious if you
That's
know.
okay. Yeah. And you know what's funny is people ask that a lot. So Aralamb speaking. So to answer the question for you, there are many groups right now on planet Earth who are being contacted by groups like the Raw group. And Jesus as a soul construct, Jesus's soul is so close to the creation at that 2200 of the 2400 levels that normally none of us come into direct contact with those souls unless we are told to do something specific. We are given something to do on a planet. Now, I am part of a larger group, which is we specialize in communications. And what that means is that when a planet is going through very strong communication evolution, and they're meant to, my group will come in and have many incarnate souls on the planet. And I can tell you right now, there are many souls on planet Earth who have communications. Melissa's just one of them as their spiritual specialty, because right now it is, as Melissa would say, it's an all hands on deck over here in the 89th level situation for Earth, because Earth's traverse is not natural. As I said earlier, Earth has been put into this very steep traverse on purpose to bring it to where it should be. And so the communicators, the artists, the writers, the healers, the amount of healers that have incarnated at all levels, because you all need to help one another to make this transition. The radical forgivers, the artists, it just goes on, right? You're all here because you wanted to be here for this incredible time period. So to answer your question, I have seen the energy of the soul known as Jesus. I have not communed directly with that soul because, as you would imagine, that soul has whole worlds. And let me say this to you, the soul that is Jesus, that came to this planet to make that huge spiritual shift, that soul has gone to many other planets with many other names to do the same kind of work. So this is an important soul. And when biblical texts say that Jesus is sort of the right hand of creation, the right hand of God, the left hand of the angelic species, this is very true. This is a very high level soul. So yes. Okay, I think this is our last question. Oh my gosh.
Hi, Melissa. My name's Trisha Schachter. I have been, and I'm sure some other people in this room have been aware through YouTube videos, books, whatever, that of course we've been helped by the other side in the galactic.
Yes.
realm, and that they've been helping us tremendously energetically
Yes.
in the past few years, if not eons. But the point is this. Now there have been many sightings.
Yes.
And that it has been disclosed that the government has been working with them for a number of years, and that there will be a public announcement that they are here, and that they will be introduced
Yes.
to us. Now, my question is, how, once that has happened, and once we are interacting with them, what will the world, what will our daily lives be like? Because I know that they have much to show us in it, to advance us scientifically, societally, even in our governance, with health, across the board. And I just want to know what that's going to be like on a daily basis, because I'll be very happy to communicate with them.
I know, right? I know. I always say to Aralamb, and I'll let him answer because he's going to answer this question, but I'll often say to him, I'm really glad to know they're there. I don't necessarily want to be introduced today, but I kind of do want to be, you know what I mean? It's that thing where you're like, if they're going to show up, like have them show up in a nice minivan or something. Like, I don't just want them landing on the back lawn. I'm not sure what I would do with that. Even with everything I know, I don't know if I want that kind of thing to happen. All right. So Aralamb's hand is up. So this is a wonderful question. In answer to your question, I'm going to say to you that the introduction is most likely to occur between 2027 Earth time and 2029 Earth time, right? So we're not that far away from the introduction, meaning this is what has happened. It is what's happening behind the scenes now is that every government on the planet who has used this information for nefarious reasons, they are trying to figure out how to stop any kind of culpability. They don't want to be held culpable for anything that they've done under the shroud of this secrecy. Now, by 2027 as well, the final difficult dark players who were off-world species will be finally gone. Every one of them will be gone. So 10 years after the off-world species who are going to be very helpful for the planet, 10 years after, but even within the first 2 years of them arriving, a few things are going to become known. The first thing is that there will be 2 Earth-like planets that any Earthling, any human being living on Earth 1 will be able to travel to and start a new life if they want to. Now, these 2 planets are uninhabited at this time. So it would be as though you were going to go there and sort of begin anew if you wanted to. And this isn't travel that would take you 10 years to get there. This is a 2-day travel. Okay. Secondarily, within the first 4 months of the turnover, every single human being will own a piece of technology which is about the size, I'm going to use an old term, of a bread box. And that bread box will sit in your domicile, whether it's an apartment building or a home or a 500-acre ranch, wherever you're living. That box will be using the dark matter fabric and giving you more free energy than you and 15 of your descendants could use in a lifetime. And it will not be electrical. There will be no need for wires. Telephone poles will come down. Electrical lines will come down. Food will also be completely transformed, the growing of food, because if you have food that is grown without any kind of petroleum products at all, everything is run in a sustainable way, you can stop harming the planet with toxins. So everything begins to change. I also can tell you this. The governments are going to change, and they're going to change radically. And here's why. Regions of the world the country that is now called Italy, will not lose its heritage. It will not lose the idea that it's Italian. It will not lose the thousands of years of Italian heritage. But what it will become is a region. Do you see? And if you want to live in that region, wonderful. If you want to take you and 50 of your closest friends and go to one of the other inhabitable planets, you'll be given 10 acres of land. You'll be given the electricity that you need. You'll be given whatever you need. In some ways, the woman who earlier mentioned Star Trek, one of the premises of Star Trek, above and beyond the kind of don't go into that don't elevate some species that's not ready, but above and beyond that, money as we know it now on this planet becomes very different. You could do nothing, or you can do what you want to do. So if what gives you joy is that you are a doctor, then by all means, you can go and become a doctor. But everything that you need to live, including the extra things that you want to have, as long as it doesn't destroy the planet that you're on, as long as you're not holding a cell phone by where the battery or the lithium is being dug up by infants in Africa for the battery, as long as none of that's happening, you can have and create whatever you want. And to speak differently about this is that if the technology exists for you to go and create the life that you want without being in any kind of competition with anyone else to get it, then everyone gets to be and do and enjoy the life that they want to create. And there's plenty of room for everyone. Do you see? The rest of the universe in many places are living this way. And it's not a perfect utopia. I'm not suggesting some perfect utopia. What I'm saying is if everyone has enough food, and it's not socialism either, because you still will want to do things. You'll be expected to do something, but you won't be forced to do anything. And the food will change because suddenly the McDonald's that's on the corner, everyone will know that no one should be eating that. No one should put that in their body ever. So I'm going to say this. So does that answer your question? And the other thing that Aralamb talks about with that, and go ahead, ask.
Well, okay. So what about education? I mean, there's a lot of truth, universal truth,
yes,
being revealed now.
Yes.
And will continue. So, I mean, the history of planet Earth, Gaia, the fact that we are really spirit, souls.
Yes.
Down here in the flesh, living a human experience temporarily.
Yes.
I mean,
so Aralamb's hand is up here. So he wants to say this to answer your question, where you're going with this. So Aralamb's hand is up. So where you're going with this is that will all knowledge become available? Spiritually, technologically, historically, will all knowledge become available to the human species? Yes, it will. There are planets within traveling distance of this Earth by where you can go and live on that planet your whole life in the pursuit of galaxial and universal understanding, spiritual understanding, the understanding of how it happens, why it happens, what your connection is, what you're capable of. So yes, you could also start your own. You can do anything that you want to do. That's the point. Free will is the piece of this puzzle that humanity has been taken. The control grid on the planet, which is going away very quickly now, still Aralamb speaking, the control grid that's been on planet Earth is gone. This is why, again, to end the way we started, Melissa says, it's as if the wheels are coming off. Everything is just in pieces everywhere. It has to happen so that the truth can be known. And that truth that you're seeking, within 15 years' time, 80% of that truth is going to be known to you and everyone standing next to you. And some souls are going to need your assistance to not panic, right? To be okay. Because if you've spent every day of your life working at a job and then going bowling after, and then going home to watch Seinfeld, and then eating a TV dinner, and then going to bed and doing the same thing tomorrow, when the universe opens up fully, it might upset you. And so you, all of you in that room, still Aralamb speaking, the reason you're here is because you're the souls who are going to help the other souls to not panic, to understand this is just a beautiful, brilliant next step for humanity. Nothing to be afraid of, right?
Okay, so the extraterrestrials that will be here among us, will they be teachers?
Yes.
Will they be teachers in the school system, instructors in?
They will teach you to teach your own. They're going to be instructing you to be universal teachers. That's what that is.
All right, thank you.
Great, great. This is me speaking. Great questions. All right, you people, it is 12:10. Do we have one? Oh, Tom, it's you. Are you asking a question or are you having?
Well, I was going to ask a question, but it's so late, I won't do that. But
do you have a question? It's your birthday. I can't not answer. He can't not answer your question on your birthday.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very, very, very much.
I've enjoyed it. I have so enjoyed it.
And Aralamb.
Yes.
This has been an amazing program. I can't wait for us to do it again, and hopefully.
I know. And the next time, I promise you, I want to be standing there and just be standing there, and then come to the party. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I could spend all day just sitting here listening to the two of you talk. I wanted to ask an ontological question about reality, if you will. And this is one probably for Aralamb. 50 some years ago, there was a channel entity called Seth that came through Jane Roberts. Yes.
In Albany, New York. And Seth's version of reality was that the fabric of the universe is not made up of tiny particles, but of what Seth calls CUs, consciousness units. In other words, that the entirety of reality is really just consciousness projecting itself. And that, of course, is absolutely consistent with the Vedic teachings and with Vajrayana Buddhism and so forth. And more recently, in the scientific community, there's some movement afoot that from Donald Hoffman with his idea that consciousness is the primary substrate of all, and that everything else is a derivative, is a epiphenomena of consciousness. And I just wondered what Aralamb's position on all that is.
So, so Aralamb speaking. Tom, wonderful question. As you know, I know that you read the book. When I speak about the dark matter fabric, and I'm going to say this to you in a bit of a broken down way, and that is this. The dark matter fabric, as you know, has the ability through its own form to be or become anything. What it always requires is the observation of the soul, the consciousness. So when these different people, and Seth included, talked about the dark matter fabric being the conscious and that you're the derivative of it, it's that the dark matter fabric holds the ability to be anything. What it does not do is make decisions. It does not decide. So when you put any kind of intention into the dark matter fabric, you do indeed wake up a piece of consciousness, which then has a reason or a direction which you've given it, and now it begins to move in that direction. So yes, and there are scientists on the planet right now that are understanding that. And the difficulty for them is that if this becomes known in the mainstream, it means that every soul who is incarnate in a body has the ability to manifest into their lives anything that they want to. Do you see?
Right.
So yes, absolutely, you're correct.
Well,
great
thank
question.
You. I have one more quick one, if I may.
It's your birthday. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you.
But you better have a piece of cake for me later. You're gonna have a piece of cake and say, "This is
That's
bites
fine.
from Melissa."
This is an exopolitics question
Yep.
about what we hear a lot about the secret space program and so forth. And this is not the Dr. Greer stuff, but the secret space program that is spoken about by this fellow Corey Good and various others.
Yeah.
And the idea that we have technology that will allow people to go off and do space programs on other planets, humans, and do 20 years and then be reverted back 20 years in their lifetime. And I wonder to what extent is that real or distortion?
So Aralamb speaking here. So about 20 Earth years ago, definitely Black programs started what is a kind of a secret space program. But here's the difference here. And have they had the technology to actually have someone go and spend time in another space time and then come back? There is that technology. That technology, however, isn't meant to be used in that way. Because again, that supersedes the free will of the human, because most of the time when those stories come out, it was done to someone young. They were taken.
Right.
They didn't go willingly, they were taken. But the space program is something that had to start to go into play because creation, when the covenant ended, creation keeps sending down edicts saying, you've got to get it together to release this species. They've got to know who they are. They've got to know what's going on out there. And about the time that the off-world others, the other species show up, that secret space program, which isn't so secret anymore, is going to be much more out there. NASA is just a front for that. NASA is simply a front for that. All right. So, Tom, it has been awesome to talk to you and all of your people. So enjoyed it. So enjoyed it. Really
It has been fabulous to have you. I'll give a big hand.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And again, I'm going to make it happen that I can come back and be in person and then, come to a luncheon after. Absolutely. And just all of you, just in closing, actually, Aralamb's hand is up. He wants to say something. So Aralamb speaking. I would say to all of you who are listening, everyone there, every single day over the next 50 years of your life, try to lead every day through your soul, because there's so much change happening. There's so much change happening, and you're all meant to make it through this transition. Don't feed into fear. Don't let the machine that is still a bit in power on the planet feed into the fear for you. It's been wonderful to be here. You've all asked phenomenal questions. I want to say thank you to everyone. It was so much fun. I enjoyed it. Have a great time at the party. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
All right, all. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Bye, everyone. And come to the party tonight.